ゲームキューブスーパーマリオ最高の大冒険がゲームキューブでついに実現
And hold it right there. In this Japanese commercial for Mario Sunshine, we got this look at a pre-release pin-a-park. Sunshine's incredibly rushed development cycle puts parts of it in a unique position of being unrecognizable mere months before its release. And you can still find remnants of unused and cut content throughout the game. This version of Pin-a-Park with the tiny courtyard and the little Ferris wheel is still visible in the opening cutscene of the game, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Honestly, I'd do an iceberg chart on all this stuff, but I find the format to be pretty arbitrary. So instead, I'm going over it here, alongside today's main focus, Corona Mountain. So welcome back, everyone and everything. I think you'll find that unused content and Sunshine's final level are a surprisingly well-matched pair, as what we've actually got here seems to be only a fraction of what was intended. A quick forward, this episode would not be possible without the incredibly dedicated people who operate the cutting room floor. They've compiled so much information through everything from data mining to good old-fashioned internet sleuthing, and most of what I have to show you here today is thanks to them. We can find this texture buried in the game's code, a title card for Corona Mountain, indicating it may have been planned to be a full-fledged level with multiple shines alongside the other 7. Also evident by the fact that, along with entering those areas, entering here subtracts all our coins. More than that, there were plans for much more than 7 levels. It makes sense, considering Mario 64 had 15. An old debug menu accessed in a pre-release version of the game shows this level select menu. While most of the entries are already familiar to us, or otherwise test levels that would never have been used, these 4 stand out as completely unfamiliar. Hotel Lacrima, Erto Rock, Warship Island, and Fire Shrine. Erto is simply the Italian word for steep, and while we're translating, Corona Mountain is easily the most clever area name in this game. Corona is Italian for crown, and it's positioned right on the center of the dolphin's head. But in English, the corona is the outer atmosphere of a sun or star. Basically, it's what we might call sunshine. Lacrima is Italian for tear, which thematically doesn't really gel with the idea of a hotel, though it is also a type of Italian wine, so maybe this level could have been some kind of vineyard. Now, it's unclear what these levels might have been, though I think it's worth drawing comparisons to some of the Bowser levels in Mario 64. Perhaps if Sunshine was originally planned to mimic more of 64's structure, these would have been the boss levels where you unlocked further progress into the game. Now, there is one level listed here we haven't seen, but we still have access to. Test Level 1 is fully playable with the use of an action replay code. This is the sort of place where programmers will tweak Mario's movement and other mechanics until they feel just right, like these stairs at varying heights used to pin down just how high Mario should jump, or this ramp to determine what angle it feels right to start slipping on. When people say Mario 64 spent its first year in development with Mario in a room until they perfected his controls, this is basically the room. Of course, there are a lot of other goodies here too, some of which I'll leave to one side until later, like, oh god, what is that? It's a Noki without a shell, covered in unfinished goop. Hey, if we spray them, we can see how their models shrink down to fit inside their shells. This area has only 6 red coins, and even if I hack it to make each one increment the counter by more than 1, it still doesn't spawn a shine. There is a shine to collect here, though there's no way to exit this area, and there's no way to save, so no sneaky extra shine for us. Oddly enough, we're technically considered to be within Delfino Plaza right now. We can even follow our position within its map using the brochure, but this shine in here is not considered to be a shine of any level. But wait, since it does drop us right here, we can collect this gold coin, collect the shine, and work our way all the way up to 100 since our coin counter doesn't reset until we change areas. To my immeasurable disappointment, there's no 100 coin shine here. But that's okay, because there's still a ton to appreciate here, like these barrels and these gratings. 2 elements which never interact in the core game. And we can see that Mario has the strongest core strength of any creature known to man. The balance, the discipline, that barrel's gotta be 5 gallons minimum. Oh my god, fear this creature. Oh, but Mario doesn't even need physical strength to pull this off. All he really needs is the will. This oil barrel is one of many things unused in the main game. According to the cutting room floor, it's got this animation attached to it, but I can't figure out how to proc it. What I did figure out is that if you dive into it just right, it bursts with water and then gets attached to our camera? I know this looks suspiciously like I just turned it into a JPEG and stuck it on screen, but no, it's still fully modeled, it just matches our camera movements 1-to-1. I'm baffled. Other unused stuff in here are these crumbly ground pound blocks and this soccer ball, which I've already mentioned before, though I like that this one made it in spirit with the durians. None of the characters here are feeling too chatty, but I like this green Pianta down in the pit. He's got this super bright coloring we never see in game. There are also a few other unused Pianta colors. I'd guess the ones they chose to leave out were cut due to either standing out too much or not enough, depending on the lighting. Though some strongly suspect the pure black color went unused to avoid accusations of ethnic stereotypes. I could see that. This was only a couple years after holiday hijinks after all. Lastly, while this green stuff isn't goop we can clean, it does seem to have some sort of pollution map attached to it, with gaps forming a pattern sort of like a board game, or maybe a train track? That leads really neatly into our next point. Another planned structural difference was some form of public transit. Possibly to add to the realism or the feeling of being a tourist, it would seem they didn't originally plan to use level warps, but some kind of train system. We can read the file names for each of its stations, which include a couple more unused areas, Lighthouse Island, and evidence that Hotel Delfino had its own separate area from Serena Beach. The fact that a train could go to Pinna Park may seem strange, but we've already seen in several places that Pinna Island wasn't always an island, and was connected to the mainland in early development. We can also find some unused dialogue pertaining to buying train tickets to new areas as they unlock using soul coins. We can see what these coins might have looked like in the very first Sunshine trailer we ever got. This is the Spaceworld 2001 trailer, and for the sake of structure, let's just start here and make our way forward. There's almost too much to take in. This is clearly what would go on to be Delfino Plaza, but the resemblance is tenuous at best. This big guy just moseying through town is called Hinokuri, but has been fan-dubbed Trampling Stew. He's also present in the test level, but only for a moment. He has some bizarre behaviors like spawning goobles and stews and being defeated seemingly at random. Some extremely dedicated people have found, I guess, a more complete iteration of his code within the game, and recreated him. He still spawns goobles and Strollin stews, and his outer shell pops when filled with enough water. He's confusing, but he's sort of become the mascot of Mario Sunshine's cut content. This little girl in one shot of the trailer is also a bit famous. We can still see Piantas around the plaza, so this idea of having proportional humans alongside the bobble-headed main cast may raise an eyebrow or two, but we've seen Nintendo come back to this idea since then, and it turns out it's not that big a deal. This little girl may also be a key player in this long string of dialogue pertaining to a chain of events involving a family vacationing on the island, getting separated, losing their ice cream to the hot sun, and an elaborate sequence of opening doors. We have what is presumably the model for the door being spoken of here in the test room. Though it's clearly unfinished, Mario's animation for going through it looks to be the same as it does with Hotel Delfino's doors. There may even have been quite a few side quests planned at one point, including things like escort missions or errands, but the fruit ladies in Delfino Plaza are the sole remnants of that kind of thing. One major side quest, also evident in unused dialogue, was Delfino's mayor asking you to help him raise the island's tourism rating. Yeah, the main plot of New Horizons was first conceived way back here, who'd have thought? Still, the most glaring differences in the trailer are structural ones. The original plan seems to have been for most of the major areas to be directly connected, open world style. Certainly ambitious for the time, but it seems like the decision was rolled back for the sake of the individual areas being larger and more complex, so I think that's a win. But you can also see early versions of Rico Harbor and Bianco Hills in this trailer. This is the same version of Rico Harbor we spotted in Elimouth's eyes, and look, there's the original airstrip attached directly to the plaza. If I had to guess, I'd say this tall structure at the center of town may have been the train station, or at least planned to be. And then we get some more shots of Bianco Hills overlooking the ocean. I'm a sucker for a nice pool. Okay, I like these vibes. In early 2002, we got these screenshots of Bianco Hills, and the more familiar things get, the more uncanny the obvious differences are. This early goop texture deserves special mention, I think, as this would seem to be the goop that they were referring to in that interview that just felt gross, leading them to design it to look more like candy. These screenshots of Rico Harbor don't have tons of information either, but we do get our best look at early FLUDD. The more bulbous design we got definitely feels like an upgrade. This early Gooper Blooper Arena seems to be in the same spot the helipad is in the final game. Keep this in mind for later. Then comes E3 2002. Now this was in May, less than 2 months before Mario Sunshine shipped in Japan, and while a lot of elements we'll recognize are in place, let's just rapid fire these spot the differences real quick. The game's title screen. These ain't the right fruit. No wanted posters. Different awnings, different mats, unfinished textures everywhere. Pina Island's empty. Corona Mountain is quite a bit smaller and greener. The flag on top of this building. All the little islands by the lighthouse. Green pipe. Another flag. The Big Shine's texture. And the platform beneath it isn't there. Neither is the pipe on top. These are not the same palm trees there in the final version. This bell tower's a short king. This thing in the water. This goop pattern. And now we know we're in the beginning of the game, and I can call out there's no black ring, no pineapple, and most shines around the plaza for things like cleaning the shine gate and bells don't seem to be implemented. Rico Harbor's looking pretty pretty good here, though this is episode 3's harbor layout with episode 1's goop. There's a lot less to stand on up on the girders. This blooper's design is a bit less blue. This is definitely a different manhole cover design. That open window has no texture. That door over there looks more like it does during the flood. Gelato Beach has Serena Beach's goo color, though it's plainly not electric yet. Ooh, Grand Pianta statue is looking tight, but this cutscene is completely different. A stack and stew in the plaza, no umbrellas, another unused manhole design, and this ice cream cart over here which we can still find in the test room. It's got a bouncy top, and hey, check it out, they've got lemon flavor. I'll take 12. Bianco Hills has all these tall birdhouses with like aspen tree trunks, these piranha bond designs, the fact they're coming out of the cave, all these platforms, these windmills, this Rico Harbor level with these massive orange placeholder blocks, this riding blooper is white, Gooper blooper is blue, you can still see the girder square back there, and no Yoshi's Fruit Adventure platforms. This early pier design on Gelato, this boat, which later is only found on Pina Beach in the airstrip. Hey, wait a minute, how does this boat change from here to there? Poinks in Gelato Beach, we got the early design of the Sandbird Tower we noticed in the level's preview, an unused boat design, black cannon, tiny Yoshi egg that doesn't need fruit to open, green Yoshi, this sign, unfinished beach design, white dune buds, everything about the hotel's interior, the background of secret levels, and a Pianta in the shell's secret. And there are buckets more shown on a Japanese demo disc released around the same time. Yeah, this footage doesn't represent the exact state the game was in May 2002, it was probably captured at least a month earlier, but man, can you imagine the crunch. But 2 months later, the game launches, and this really is a success story, isn't it? Sure, we can speculate on what might have been. The most insane amongst us might even try to recreate it with fan mods and level editing, but standing here, at the end of the road? I can't say I'm not satisfied. Mario Sunshine is janky, its difficulty curve is all over the place, and there are certainly times where you can feel the potential, the absence of what could have been if things had gone differently, but Isle Delfino is so much more than a product of its time and lack thereof. It's a brilliantly realized place that effortlessly drives the player forward with its utterly charming locales and sheer vibes. You might see the tears in its tapestry and think, what a shame, so rushed, so mishandled. But I see them as evidence of Sunshine's triumph, what it managed to overcome, pulling from all directions to create something cohesive. It's a testament to the artistry of everyone who worked on this game. Don't get me wrong, developers and artists of all stripes absolutely deserve to have all the time they need, and the ever-mounting public denouncement of crunch and unfair deadlines is exclusively positive in my eyes. But there is a special place in my heart for the creators out there that rose to the challenge and gave us something as delightful as Mario Sunshine. So, as one last celebration of everything this game went through to get where it is, let's lead into the final level with a victory lap, looking for all those peculiar little leftovers. Just off screen on the file select is a mysteriously unused dock model. Corona Mountain is in its beta form during FLUDD's introduction, and the polluted piranha is nowhere to be seen. If we use the same glitch we used to equip the bubble nozzle in order to get the turbo nozzle here, we can crash the game by breaking these doors. This is probably because it's trying and failing to load the building's interior, the invisible room above the tower in its visible form, which I can show you. Lots of cool details in here too, like this little letter station and these paper airplanes. There are also a few unused textures found in this area's texture sheet, including a female Pianta pot and an Animal Crossing gyroid. Of course, there's that black puck on the Shine Gate in the courtroom cutscene, but we can also see that earlier sign from the E3 trailer and the early version of this door. In Shadow Mario's intro, we caught this graffiti triangle on the prison, but I found its twin in another Japanese commercial for the game, right over here. That same commercial, incidentally, gives us our most interesting look at Beta Bianco Hills. From within Bianco, looking down at Rico Harbor, we can see that early Gooper Blooper arena, that square of girders instead of a helipad. Rico Harbor's got that one pipe on the wrong island. Gelato Beach's level preview tells us a whole different story than the final game, with the sandbird egg sitting outside the tower, its upper area missing, and a rope connecting these structures, just to name some of the most prominent. Pinna Park, the lost hub world, remains a treasure trove for this kind of thing. When looking at it from Delfino Plaza, we can see this distinctly tall tree peeking over the hill, likely a remnant of when the Pianta tree was significantly taller. Of course, we've got the red Ferris wheel in this cutscene, but since we know from this commercial that this whole Mecha Bowser sequence was made for a completely different park, we can look for signs of its transposition and find them in the roller coaster. See how this section of the track crosses in front of Bowser in this shot, but is curiously layered behind him in the next one. Episode 5 is the runaway Ferris wheel, where the thing's doing 200 RPM, but look at the wheel from the beach in that episode and it's doing just fine. But then look at it from the beach in episode 3 and it's spinning like it should be in episode 5. Did some things get shuffled around a bit too hastily? Perhaps most remarkably of all, this was the only continuity error considered glaring enough to be fixed in the Switch version. Everything about Noki Bay, though here's a strange tidbit, the Shell secret would seem to be one of the first secret courses made, as we can see an early version of it in this alpha level select screen from Spaceworld 2001. Pianta Village has that beta spawn location if you exit it early enough in the game, and this very strange shot in its brochure, long on hills and short on the ocean, along with this mysterious unused object hanging out in the background. Of course, an honorable mention to the many oddities of the FLUDD, and that finally brings us to Corona Mountain. This gauntlet ahead of us is essentially the answer to the question, how hard can platforming be when you have a jetpack? After spending this whole game using FLUDD to absolutely bypass whatever challenge didn't take them away from us, this volcano finally delivers. Now, you might look at this corridor of lava and think, well, there can't be too many small details to pick out in here. And yeah, it's nowhere near the fully fleshed out levels, but we do have a brochure page to look at. And with this being our last one, take a look at the area name. Every area has a unique colored text to it. We learn that these pools behind the Shine Gate are actually hot springs, and this text over here isn't terrible. We got spectacular! If you challenge to climb the Corona Mountain, you can enjoy seeing the beautiful isle, because the mountain is the Eye of Dolphin. I think this says limit permanently, but I'm at a loss for the rest. This route up the mountain may be a hint at what form this level may have taken earlier in development, but I don't think they would have missed their chance at making this a fire level. It's tradition. Speaking of, let's get up close and personal to this area's hazards. Apart from literally 5 safe platforms, everywhere we can touch down on is either a spike hazard or a fire trap. I like the dichotomy between them. These stone platforms look like this might once have been some kind of temple or shrine, while these metal ones definitely have that signature Bowser style. An interesting function of both varieties of metal platform is that when the hazard is active, the whole platform is a hitbox. This is most likely to prevent you from being able to hold on to the sides or even wall jump between them. They also do 3 damage, the only things we've seen with that property since bullet bills, though they may as well be instant death. There are very few situations where you'll take a hit and survive. The fire stuns you into a burning animation, and the spikes have the unique attribute of granting you absolutely nothing in the way of invincibility frames. This has got to be the most brutal death Mario can undergo in this game. I'm pretty sure this was done to make sure that if one knocks you into the lava is guaranteed to finish you off. It's functionally identical to the death water from the lily pad level. So basically, this all amounts to, we have to get through this whole thing perfectly. All the spike platforms are synchronized, and the fire platforms are temporarily disabled by water. Don't bother spraying them from afar. It's much smarter to simply hover over them. The fire then only stays out for about 2 spike platform cycles, so don't hesitate. With this being our most brutal challenge yet, there's a neat element to Mario's voice acting I'd like to touch on. Take your bets. Am I using every available opportunity to stretch out the shortest level in this game to fit a whole game breakdown video, or am I just finding devilishly clever opportunities to talk about all the things I wasn't able to find a good spot for in the previous levels? When Mario is at 2 health or less, nearly all of his voice lines change to reflect that he's at the end of his rope. Due to the multitude of coins available at every step, and just the general lack of threats that don't outright kill you, it's all too easy to go whole playthroughs without hearing a single one of these voice lines. By far the rarest of these are for entering an M portal at low health, since there's so little that might even damage you in the plaza to even hear it.
There's more? Aren't I done yet?
So obscure are these voice lines that I mistakenly claimed they were unused in the Serena Beach video. And of course, he has a unique idle animation to cap it off. Bro looks like a Yoshi. There is one unique enemy in here, but it's such a non-issue I'm willing to bet most of you never even registered they were here. These are lava Cheep Cheeps, the most hardcore fish to ever do it. What's funny is there's not actually anything unique about them mechanically. They're basically just these guys from Noki Bay. In fact, if you somehow finagle the mud boat from the other side of this corridor over here, you can even catch them in the same way. If you do manage to take damage from one, it still only takes 1 bit of health, and the flames do nothing to stop you from stomping them should you accomplish that either. In other words, they're all flash. More expensive expensives than Cheep Cheeps. I do like this kinda Dia de los Muertos aesthetic they've got going on with their eyes though. We are gonna snag this blue coin as we make our way through, and from here it's just a matter of keeping our cool. This is unequivocally the most required the hover nozzle has ever been for a stage. This one's going confidently on our list here. This is our last area, so that's our total. 8 shines unless you count the bubble nozzle levels, and even then, that's not even a tenth of the shines in this game. It's fascinating. Perhaps in an earlier version of this game, these levels would have simply provided a hover nozzle you otherwise wouldn't have had access to. Some cut dialogue indicates that alternate nozzles would have broken upon taking damage, so while the platforming would be more lenient with it, there'd still be an added element of precision, basically how the power-ups in the 2D games work. Nintendo would revisit that idea later on in games like Galaxy, but I think the dev team just had so much fun hovering around with FLUDD that they made the snap decision to make it a core part of the moveset. This gives players the opportunity to really master it, to experiment with how far they can push the game's limits, and Nintendo is just watching and nodding along. We've spent this whole game talking about the Nintended routes through levels and how to bypass them, but the secret is, it's all been Nintended. Well, okay, maybe not all, but there is something to the layouts of these areas that feels incredibly deliberate. Take this level, for example. If we were to do something incredibly stupid, like try to take on this hover nozzle gauntlet without the hover nozzle, you might expect that I'd need to use some sort of exploit or glitch to pull it off. But these platforms are the perfect distance apart. It is exactly possible to foist this ludicrous challenge on yourself. This jump here, it seems unfeasible. The distance is just too great. So it sure is remarkably lucky Nintendo put this expensive exactly where we need it to make this jump, and by extension make this whole challenge possible. See what I mean? Could that really have been a coincidence? Or has someone designing these levels been a step ahead of us the whole time? But with our final test of the hover nozzle behind us, we've got one final test of our squirt nozzle to undertake here. You remember the mud boat, it was there in Noki Bay. Surely you used it and mastered its controls. Actually, no, this is a cruel joke, because even if you did do that, this isn't even the same boat! It's slightly longer, which means bigger hitbox, and in terms of controls, it picks up speed a bit faster and handles a little differently in ways that are really difficult to put into words. Of course, if it so much as grazes anything in this lava river, that'll just be it for you. But fret not, I come bearing a secret technique. The most difficult thing about this boat is getting it to go in a straight line once you've got it pointed where you want it, since it's too sensitive to your position and the angle in which you spray. However, for reasons far beyond human comprehension, if you use the sprinkler technique, the boat will float straight and true. Even more bizarre, this also works with the obscure spin hover technique. Also, I'd better mention before we move on, I'm reasonably sure these swirls around the rim of the boat aren't Dolphic letters, as if they are, it just spells out AC backwards C backwards A. And while is a reasonable sentiment while trying to steer this thing, I doubt that's what they were going for. Now, let's say you simply can't abide by this boat, and you will take any alternative to it no matter how preposterous. Well, take our good friends the expensives. Unlike the spikes, taking damage from them still grants us invincibility. Allow them to teach you their ways, and you can fall through the lava barrier and embrace their hardcore lifestyle. Now it's just a matter of swimming down this corridor. One problem, we can no more breathe lava than we can water, but surfacing to breathe doesn't seem like an option. Not to worry, we got down here using invincibility frames. We're gonna get through this with them too. Whenever Mario loses a tick of health to the ever-mounting possibility of drowning, we can use the frankly generous amount of invincibility frames to take a quick gulp of air before diving back under. The timing might take a few tries to master, but this is surprisingly doable. Once we reach the end, simply use the same technique to pop out of the lava on this far island. Though without the boat, you might find collecting these blue coins over here a bit of a tall order. Here's an interesting mechanic that basically only comes into play right now. If this save screen pops up while you're hovering, and you release the hover button while the game is suspended, it'll cut the hover when it resumes. So you can either hold the R button or not press it until after you've obtained the coin. But either way, it's gonna be tough to pull yourself all the way back in order to grab multiple coins. It wouldn't feel right to grab these last 10 blue coins without one last map. We had the gimme over here, and then the other 9 all surround this final platform. 5 are close enough to jump to and hover back. The other 4 you're really gonna want the boat for. Take your time, and despite the situation, don't get too excited, and we can net ourselves all 240 blue coins. Not much left now. A rocket nozzle invites us to climb these clouds up to the volcano's summit. This little square here suggests to me that this is where the nozzle box was supposed to be, but maybe whoever's job that was didn't see it, I don't know. If you don't touch the camera here, it gives you this really cinematic angle of ascent, but it's awful for actually judging these jumps. Luckily, you are allowed to shift the camera around, but if you're feeling silly, you can shift it even lower. There's a 1-up on this tiny central cloud if you're feeling daring, and if we look up to the very top, we can see what looks like what would go on to become the shape of the Grand Star from Galaxy. Our goal is this red cloud beneath it, but one last time, let's do this our way.
water's great, eh, Junior?
Sure is, Papa. Come on in, Mama Peach. I think not. Mario! You again? Don't you ever give up?
Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
Yeah, so Bowser, the man, the turtle, the father of the year, just shows up with all but no ceremony. He's literally just chilling in the spa with his family, and Mario just pops up like, sup. This shot we get of the water, you can just barely see a shine sprite underneath it, which feels to me like a weird thing to set up, as though we didn't just come all the way up here for Peach. But boss fight time. There are a lot of weird properties to this one. Wouldn't be Sunshine's finale if there weren't. I think this skybox suggests we're at the summit of the volcano, with everything beneath us being concealed by clouds. This also may give us an answer as to what caused the flood in the plaza. Junior loses to Mario like 19 times in a row and finally goes back to Dad to say he can't beat him, and Bowser throws a big tantrum, sloshing all the water from the hot spring on the summit over the side of the mountain. You can see the crater is filled with water in a couple of the island's overhead shots, so there you go. I'm out here solving mysteries that weren't mysteries. Now, they really shouldn't have let me have the rocket nozzle for this fight. This gives me way too much power. We can bounce on this nasty green water like it's jello. We can even see the shine just chilling down inside it, but what we can't do is get close to Zelda. I wrote Zelda in the script. But what we can't do is get close to Peach. Her position in the tub stays fixed relative to Mario, and it's for good reason. Probably for visual clarity, they scaled her all the way up. She's like 5 times Mario's height right now. A little treat from me, I was not expecting this. Bowser will react if you lure bullet bills into crashing into him. This has nothing to do with how we win this fight, so this is just a crazy niche detail they thought to include. This green liquid is also truly remarkable. Yeah, it doesn't act anything like actual liquid, but these giant globs are shifting and acting individually based on the physics engine. For the time, this was incredibly ambitious, and if we assume it's not meant to be water but some kind of gelatinous goo, my suspension of disbelief can do the rest. Now, since it is constantly undulating, what I can't show you is that there's an image reflected in it that doesn't match our location. Extract that image from the code and we can see it's the Noki depths. That's definitely curious. These Bullet Bills Junior fires are both new varieties, doing only 1 damage instead of 3. The black ones drop nothing, but the blue ones can drop water bottles and rarely even 1-ups. The first one you destroy in every attempt will always be a 1-up, so make sure to grab it if you're at risk of a game over. Unfortunately, Junior's little toy submarine is completely intangible, but we can spray him, and as long as he's freaking out we're rocking the boat, he won't fire any bills at us. Bowser himself has only 2 attacks. One is this fire breath nonsense, he'll sweep across the edges of the tub. The other is him splashing a wave of goo in your direction. Both are easy enough to avoid with the rocket nozzle, but you can also shut him down completely by spraying him. Like father, like son, I suppose. Oh my god, they made Bowser do the dad rub. So what are we trying to do here? FLUDD recommends we try tilting the tub, and short of any other plans, I mean, we may as well. The design on these spokes is identical to the black disc atop the lighthouse, which means we need a rocket height ground pound to do the trick. But if we try a normal one, Bowser just keeps freaking out at the power of Mario's mighty Italian buttocks. Yeah, that seems to be effective. Just do that 4 more times. Well, this is the main challenge of this fight. Getting back up while the platform is crumbling and the goo is splashing and the bullets are billing. There's a lot going on, but you also have a lot more time than it looks like you do. Wait out the splashes and then rocket on back and all should be good. Junior will step it up a notch now. These red-nosed bills aren't as homing as the purple ones, but their trajectories are curved instead of linear. So between that and the increased amount, they can be a bit trickier to avoid. 3 more times. If you're feeling extra stylish, you can use rocket storage to completely stunt on Bowser here. FLUDD stutters after you smashed the 3rd, and is starting to sound pretty rough after number 4. If all these rocket launches are taking their toll, I have a lot to own up to. But only 1 to go. Let's do this, FLUDD. Hee-yah! We fell so long it's daytime again. What is that Graffiti X doing there? That's the one from the side of the Grand Pianta statue.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, I know this is an emotional moment with FLUDD and all, but the Ferris wheel is red again. This callback to FLUDD's intro screen is a great touch. All the text is replaced with errors, and the little footage section is displaying Mario 1's Game Over screen.
Mario, was I
Oh, and now I'm really gonna steal the emotions from this scene here. Mario's neck? This isn't a part of his normal model. They added it specifically for this scene just so he could have this moment of looking down at FLUDD, but they didn't shade it right, so it just looks terrible.
Mario, look.
And we get this celebratory shot. Tons of familiar faces in this crowd. The two cops, the Noki Elder, Director Potato Head. Is that the judge and prosecutor over there? Why do they get such a prominent position in this shot? As far as I'm concerned, they're more of the main villain of this game than Bowser. There's also a lot of doubling up here. There's an extra prosecutor, an extra orange cop, an extra Noki Elder, another blue cop, and those are just the easy ones. I find it pretty interesting that the Noki Elder is even in this scene, since we can tell by the errant X mark that this was made a fair bit before the game was finished. They must have had his model locked and loaded for a while, especially since we don't see some other prominent figures in this crowd, like the hotel manager, or the Pianta mayor, or even the Rico harbor captain. The Koopas are hanging out here on what looks like a big orange shell. This is actually the overturned bathtub that our boss fight just took place on.
Junior, I've got something difficult to tell you about Princess Peach.
I know she's not really my mama. Someday, when I'm bigger, I wanna fight that Mario again.
That's my boy. Well put, son. The Royal Koopa line is as strong as ever.
This is one of my favorite scenes in this game. It gets dunked on mostly because of Bowser's voice actor, like he really does just sound like a guy for a sec here.
But for now, let's just rest a while.
But again, this is the game that established Bowser Jr., and it did a great job. He's devious, smart enough to put together that the Peach thing was a lie, but he enjoyed the game so much it didn't matter. And look at this! That's a tear! He's such a proud dad, oh my god! And one last thing to love. The music playing here is sort of an awkward mirror to the Super Mario World ending theme.
As ever. But for now, let's just rest a while.
One more Ferris wheel error. We got the blue one and the red one together at last. Their love was not to be, but they found a way. And FLUDD is all fixed. Okay, I guess we better do this now. Obviously, I love FLUDD mechanically, but how do I feel about their character? I wish I had a hot take here, that I found some of their obscure dialogue to be funny, or that I've unearthed some personality beneath the robotic stoicism, but honestly, what character? FLUDD's dialogue is so bare bones for a tutorial giver, apart from those odd PSA moments. I don't dislike them, but that's mainly because there's nothing here to dislike. So when they tried to pull this emotional companion is dead moment, nothing stirred in my cold dead heart. Glad you're feeling better though, FLUDD, and this is, at the very least, a pretty iconic last line for them.
The vacation starts now.
We'll get a bunch of pictures throughout the credits of the gang enjoying their vacay now that Mario's prison sentence is carried out. My favorite is this one. One of the things Toadsworth was most excited for in the intro was riding the turtle coaster, and the old bean finally got to. But I'm gonna skip the rest of the credits for now because we're not completely done yet. For beating the game without 120 shines, we get this image at the end of the credits, Il Piantissimo next to the magic paintbrush. I'd love to tell you what this means, but if it is a setup to something, Nintendo has yet to pay it off. Some people theorize that this means Il Piantissimo was just another guise of Bowser Jr., but I don't think so. Now, there will be a different end screen if we attain 100% before rolling the credits, so let's head back into the plaza. There's one major change enacted upon beating the game. Sunglasses Bros will now hook you up with this adorable Hawaiian shirt festooned with a shine sprite pattern. Tell you what, I'd say that's actually worth the screen tint. And now that we're fully dressed for the part, let's finally turn in our hoard of blue coins. 240 for 24 shines. Sounds like a deal. Yes, I am quite sure. With that, can we talk about the Shine Sprites? They clearly have a degree of sentience to them. They choose to gather in Delfino Plaza only as long as the island is clean, and they may even like watermelon smoothies, hard to tell. So there's absolutely a story to this Tanuki holding a fifth of them hostage for cold hard coins. But honestly, the more you think about it, the more questions are raised. If Shine Sprites flee from filth, why are so many hanging out directly inside filthy things? Are they trapped? If so, why are the ones that aren't connected to anything dirty just chillin' until Mario comes to get them? I don't have these answers, but I do enjoy having these questions. With all 24 shines purchased, if we talk to the Tanuki again, "Oh, but it looks like we're all out now. Don't I feel silly? How am I gonna make a living now, Oh, he's definitely kidnapping more shines as soon as we leave. And that's everything. No more dialogue has changed, not even the Toad, since this is the sort of post-game where the clock is rolled back, which means all that's left is to take our 120 shines and go get our reward for 100% completion. That means disturbing Bowser's family vacation one last time, and while I do that, have a listen to this extremely underappreciated boss theme. And with that, we're finished. I can't overstate how happy I am that this last shine isn't a clear repeat. I think that would have been awkward. But that is Super Mario Sunshine officially broken down. I set out on this journey with a pretty lofty goal in mind: create the definitively informative Sunshine playthrough. I learned so much about this game over the journey, but principally, how utterly unattainable that goal really was. Sunshine is an astronomically dense game. Every corner of every level is packed with some fascinating little detail. Even after finishing a video, I'd be goofing off in the area I just finished going over with a fine-tooth comb and uncover yet something more. I'm convinced at this point we will never stop peeling away this game's layers. Between its incredibly dedicated fanbase and the development team that showed up to play, this is the rabbit hole that never ends. Like, hey, did you know ringing these bells in Bianco Hills with the wheel gives you coins, but doing it with FLUDD gives you a 1-up? Or that you can outwit the Cheep Cheeps in Gelato Beach by simply swimming with a fruit? Or that you can store a red coin timer by opening your map the moment you hit the button, delaying the countdown start until you next touch solid ground? Or that there's a 1 in 32,000 chance that the code keeping Goobles from spawning near Gooper Blooper will mess up and spawn one anyway? I didn't know. And the more people this series reaches, the more of you will reach out and share even more details I'll always wish I could have shared before it was over. But I think the impossibility of this task is in itself something to be celebrated. That Mario Sunshine has this much to offer, even coming off the tail end of a deep dive like this one, that's the coolest detail of all. And besides, if anything has been the moral of this deep dive, it's that this game is a vacation, and the pressure to see it all, to do it all, to postpone its inevitable conclusion, all that's going to do is keep you from really enjoying yourself in the moment. Eventually, we have to let it end. Both Mario's and my work here is done. So, until the next time, have a relaxing vacation. Yes, that image and this symbol on the file select are the only rewards for achieving 100%, but hopefully, if you've been paying attention, you'll already know my thoughts on that matter. Besides that, all that's left now is to thank you all for seeing it through with me to the end. Mario Sunshine is a game that has transcended nostalgia for me. It's so far past a beloved favorite. It's one of the games that shaped me, so sharing this part of myself with all of you has been an incomparable joy. Of course, my most intense thanks go to my incredible Patreon supporters, and as thanks to them, they get to see the next episode of Game Breakdown right now. So if you want to see what comes next, the link's in the description. My most excessive shoutouts to Amiri the Grey, who can spin so fast in an office chair she can take flight. It's Ciel, though, who I once saw drink an entire oil drum of acid, and all they did afterwards was complain about its vintage. And Raven, who has access to a real-life character customization menu, but he doesn't make himself look that much better because he's pretty humble like that. Obsessive thank yous to Janku, Andrew Minturn, Marcel S., Drooling, Chris Braydell, and Jojo Dwagan. Each and every one of you is amazing, and I'll see you on our next journey. Who knows? Starting a new one may not be so hard.